and welcome! In this video, I'm going to try to explain some of the structures and grammar points and language aspects in general that you were able to observe in my latest poetry video. I've never done this before with any of the literature videos that I featured here on my channel, but I thought it might be helpful to introduce such a section. I've recently added a vocabulary review section in which a selection of words and phrases that appear in the text are listed separately at the end of the video, which again I think is a very important feature for vocabulary learning, and it's a useful extra. So in order to make the most of these videos, I'm also going to go through some of the structures that appear in the text and give you some additional explanations on those topics. And I'm going to do this in a separate video because I want you guys to see the text first and then let me know in the comments what language aspects or structures you would like me to talk about in the upcoming language revision video. This way we can interact some more and I get to talk about topics that are interesting and relevant to you. That being said, if you haven't watched the video on Geo Bogza's poem yet, please go ahead and watch it, as this is going to help you understand the context better. Alright, first I'm going to talk about a syntagm that appears repeatedly in this poem, and that is the expression ai fi dor. Și mie mi-era dor de tine, Ioana Maria, cum le e dor somnambulilor de lună, cum le e dor corăbiilor de largul mării, în care mi-a fost dor de tine, Ioana Maria. Ai fi dor roughly translates as to miss someone or something. I've actually made another video in the past where I treated this topic exclusively and where I talked in more detail about the meaning the concept of dor has to Romanians and the situations in which we use it. So if you're interested in those aspects, maybe it's worth a watch too. In this video, I don't want to dive too deep into the semantics of this expression, but rather explain from a morphological and syntactical point of view how we use it. Ai fi dor is a somewhat atypical verbal construction because it doesn't follow the usual conjugational pattern. We don't say eu sunt dor, tu ești dor, el este dor, ea este dor, and so on and so forth. Instead, in the position that is normally occupied by a subject, we now have a so-called experiencer, as they call it in the academy grammar, that from a syntactical point of view is not an actual subject, but sort of pretends to be one because it represents the person who experiences the feeling of dor. Theoretically, this experiencer is not a subject, but an indirect object. The actual subject is the noun dor, and that is the reason why the verb doesn't change its form and always stays in the third person singular, because the indirect object is not the one that modifies the verbal form, but the subject. This experiencer is expressed using the dative case. So we say îmi este dor, îți este dor, îi este dor, and so on. Other expressions that fall into the same category are ai fi foame, ai fi sete, ai fi bine, ai fi rău, ai fi cald, ai fi frig, and so on. And if you're wondering what this I over here is, I've actually seen this question asked many times. This I is an unstressed dative pronoun whose role here is to signalize that the expression requires the dative case. To sum up, with the expression ai fi dor, we use the dative case and the verb a fi always stays in the third person singular, regardless of the tense or mood it appears in. As you are able to see in the poem, we had mi-era dor and mi-a fost dor. One last aspect that is very important for the usage of this verbal construction and that often gets
overlooked is that after the noun dor, we use the preposition de, which requires the accusative case. So the person or thing one has the feeling of dor for is going to be expressed using an accusative noun or pronoun, as we could see in our poem. So we had mi-era dor de tine. Next, I want to talk about the word lume and the different semantic nuances it can have. Lume can basically be used with two main meanings, either in the sense of world or in the sense of people. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples to make everything more clear. In the sense of world, lume can refer to the whole physical universe. Cine a creat lumea? The earth and all the people and things on it. Am prieteni în toată lumea. Society, a fugi de lume. A distinctive class of persons or their sphere of interest. Lumea academică. In the sense of people, lume can refer to people as a group or folks. Cunosc multă lume. Most people. Este adevărat ce crede lumea? Every person or everyone. Toată lumea. Lume can also appear in many expressions, and particularly worth mentioning are the following commonly used idioms. Ca lumea. De când lumea și pământul. Pentru nimic în lume. Când ți-e lumea mai dragă. În rând cu lumea. A veni pe lume. Aș lua lumea în cap. Okay, I'm now going to move on to the last aspect that I want to cover in this video, and that is the difference in usage between the compound perfect tense and the imperfect tense, as both tenses appear in our poem, and I know that this is a common question that Romanian learners have. The compound perfect tense is used to express finished actions or states in the past. And here's an example from the text.
În toamna aceea, Ioana Maria, am cunoscut cele mai triste seri din lume.
So, the described action happens during an autumn from the past and it is now over. Then the verbal tense switches to the imperfect because what follows next is a description of the background, of the mood and of the feelings the speaker used to have during that time period. And whenever we have such descriptions, we usually use the imperfect tense. The imperfect tense can also be used to The imperfect tense can also be used to describe a habitual action that happened repeatedly in the past. Whereas the compound perfect tense usually describes a completed action that happened one time in the past and not a habit. For example, vara trecută am mers la țară versus când eram copil mergeam în fiecare vară la țară. The two tenses can overlap in the past, a case in which the imperfect indicates an action that was in full swing when it was interrupted by another action, which is expressed using the compound perfect tense. For example, mă plimbam prin parc când a început să plouă. There are also other particular situations when we can use these two tenses, but these ones that I've shown you are the most common ones. So I hope I could help you understand a little bit better the main difference between them. Alrighty, that's about it for now. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video and that you've learned something new. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, I'll see you next time.
Be happy! Ba, ba, ba.